Hey, everybody out there. We are live, and Shelly and I are here with Joey Drolshagen of IFGT Life Coaching, and he is also a realtor, and he is with us at Impact Now. We are so excited to introduce him. Welcome, Joey.
Oh, thank you. I am so pumped up and excited to be here with you guys today. So this is awesome. Like a dream come true.
We've had some great conversations, and I know like the last time we talked, I was pumped and powered up. I mean, I love that call. You don't call with Joey, you know that you're going to be pumped for the rest of the day. So you're obviously an amazing coach. Been doing this for a long time. How many years have you been in the coaching world, Joey?
For over a decade now, I've been doing coaching.
Wow. And what was like the driving force of like, I'm going to coach, I want to help people. I love your energy towards helping others. I know Craig and I talked about that. This guy's like full of energy, such a great leader in our industry and helps so many people. So share a little bit about that.
Yeah. When I was raised in a very low income family outside Detroit, Michigan, blue collar family. And, I was taught a man gets a job, supports a family. So I started a corporate career at 18, 19 years old, went to school as an adult, for my college education and stuff. But at 22 years old, I had this event happen to me, and I was listening to a gentleman, his name was Jack Boland. And he gave this talk, and I had no idea what he said, but it just ignited this thing inside of me that I wanted to spend my life inspiring, motivating, and leading people to live better lives. And I didn't know what that meant. I looked into being a minister, and I am a minister, and and a pastor of the church and things like that. But it's kind of followed, it's kind of continued to drive me into what I do today. And at the same time I was building this, I had a 28-year career in corporate America up to a vice president of sales and building strong territories, leading teams, but also specializing without planning specializing in helping companies that were either in or going into bankruptcy to get, come back out that other side into profitability. And I was good at what I did, but it was never my passion. So a series of events happened probably 11 and a half, 12 years ago. And it was just like, man, I can't stand living this double life like this. Like I've been a student of the works I do today since I was 22, and I finally stepped out. And when I did, and I developed the Smt Method, which is a total mindset method. It's not dealing with look happy and be happy type of a thing. It goes deeper than that into the subconscious conditioning. And when I identified what that was and put that together, within a month and a half, I opened up IFGT Life Coaching, which the IFGT stands for It's Freaking Go Time. And that's really where I was. Like, it was like I waited so long to get that stepping off point. And within 6 months, I resigned from corporate America. I moved down to the mountains in South Carolina, where I've always wanted to live, with the trout streams and all that, and bought a cabin home that I live in. And I've been building this business ever since. And it's just been like a rebirth of my life, getting to live in the passion. And I love giving back. I love inspiring people and helping them see what's possible for them outside of what they see in their own view of their life.
That's awesome. Like I remember, like in the conversation, one of the conversations we had last time, you were talking about kind of when you were in corporate and like you started, they would put you in a place and then you would fix it, and everybody would be like fired up. And then they'd say, hey, come over here and fix this. And you're like, I'm pretty good at this, And it's like, that was really interesting to me. Like you had that passion, but you're like, you know what, I can break out and really start to change lives. It kind of took place. It almost like came to you in a way, like it showed up in front of you, it seems.
Absolutely. I've pushed, when people talk about struggling, especially realtors, because that's like, I almost exclusively work with realtors now, but they push and they grind and they try so hard to get to that business level they want to get to. And it's not that they're deserving or not deserving. It's that sometimes we push so hard to try to make things happen. We don't allow those avenues for it to flow, and it's constantly opportunities are flowing. And so one of the things I do is help people slow down and get out of their own way, kind of like that fly, Craig and Shelly, on the windowsill that is trying harder and harder and harder to go through that window pane and ends up dead on the windowsill. And just like so many of our visions and our goals and desires for our life are the same way, if we slow down. I do in a workshop and I show that with the fly. And then later on in the presentation, I'll show that same exact picture, except I'll circle at the bottom of it where that window's open about 2 inches. If that fly would slow down, it would easily drop down and take off into freedom. And that's what happens in so many of our lives. So I've been through that struggle and pushing and trying to force exhaustive hours, massive actions and all that. And it just kept crashing and burning, and I never got the results I wanted. When I started slowing down, when I started utilizing the tools of the Smt Method, subconscious mindset training is what it stands for, is where it started opening up those avenues. And I'll tell you guys, in corporate America, I'd have a success and it was like, okay, cool. Today, when I have a success and it personally impacts somebody's life and they have an aha moment in their life, oh my God, that lights me up for weeks.
It's so much better when you get that personal, like that. You actually, I mean, that's what feels good when you get that text message where someone's actually, it actually moved the needle for them in some direction where they were stuck before.
Yes.
It's fun to watch. That's amazing that's your passion. You're getting to do that. And how do you see, like, what do you see for the future of yourself? Like, are you writing a book? You're doing some great things. Share with us a little bit about what you have going on.
Absolutely. So I have a book called Life's Lessons, and it's all about all the principles in which I teach is when I got to a point in my own walk in this lifetime, when it was struggling, everything was hard, and the divorce and the financial and all this stuff happened and everything. And I got to a point of overload where it's like, I don't know what to do with this, but I don't want to keep living this life. I got to a series of events that happened that led me down this avenue. If I take the judgment out of the things happening in my life, there's no good or bad, right or wrong, fair or unfair, any of that. And I start asking a question, what is this trying to teach me? All of a sudden, I could take the most devastating, the most upsetting things that happened in my life, and I could learn from those. And that's one of the things I loved helping people, because we all have those. It's part of the human condition. A lot of people talk about the law of attraction, and if you get sick, it's because you were thinking sick and stuff like. I say BS to a lot of that. Life happens. We're human beings. We have a lot of organs and things that have to, click exactly when they click and stuff, and sometimes they don't, and it's part of the condition. But what happens isn't the events that happen to us. It really is, what am I going to do with this? From this moment right here, somebody struggling in real estate, whenever I hear that, I go, great, because that's your discontent trying to make you so miserable that you do something different. It's there as a teacher. It's helping you see what you don't want, what you're discontent about, so you can go to that other side and look at what you do want. As a result of what you said, Craig, these things showing up, is I have a TV program that's supposed to be coming out on Honest Network, and it's freaking Go Time is the name of the show. And I'll be working with realtors, brokers, small business owners, and helping them identify what their problems are, what that core problem is, not the one that I'm not getting enough sales. There's a reason you're not getting enough sales. I'm not getting enough leads, and it's never that the inventory levels. It's never that the people buying. It's never that I'm not doing enough efforts and things like that. Almost never. That I'm not doing enough efforts. It's more not doing the right things for you. But that's the reason why some realtors can just, slam it even in a down economy, and why other realtors, even in a booming economy, can't get to their goals and their achievements and stuff. And it's not the economy. It's not the outside factors. It's what we're doing about those outside factors. Yep. So with the TV show, I'm really excited about that. And one of the things I don't teach people how to sell real estate. There's so many things to do that. That's not what I teach people. What I teach people is how to identify that underlying conditioning that's holding you hostage to where you are, shifting that and opening up that doorway to achieve more, but do so with less effort. And I have like this incredible, like I get goosebumps sometimes, this incredible track record of the success that that I've helped realtors achieve in doing so.
Yeah. I mean, what you're saying is so true. Like last night, for instance, I'm watching the men's basketball championship, NCAA championship, Carolina, Kansas. That is the biggest moment of those kids' lives. And when you win, everyone's like, wow, that's going to change their lives. It's going to be with them forever. But you see the pain of the team that lost, right? And you have two choices. You can deflate and say, you know what, that's it. It's the end. I failed. Or you could use that life lesson to grow and say, you know what, if I'm going to go on and play basketball, you know what, I missed 2 key foul shots. I'm going to do 1,000 foul shots a day for forever. That's me now. And you can change your game. If you're going into corporate or a job and you're graduating, you can use that life lesson. Like, listen, I had that chance at the pinnacle and I wasn't ready, or I could have been better. And I'm going to get a coach, or I'm going to take the right training, or I'm just going to have a totally different mindset. And that's where my mind went. Like, you know, as painful as that is, they're probably learning a much better lesson that's going to change their life that much better than the winner.
Absolutely. And, you know, and you're absolutely right. The winner, it's easier to get into that joy side and everything. When we're getting what we want in life, it's easy to do that, right? Oh man, I'm so blessed and I'm grateful and I'm this and I'm that, and keep it. And it's good to lean into that because it keeps it flowing then.
Right.
It's the losing side. You think about that. You have 2 teams that go to a final, right? 2 teams out of all the teams, all the people playing, all that. You have 2 teams and you're on one of those 2 teams. You've already won.
That's right.
Regardless of what that scoreboard says at the end. And I used to love, you know, I've coached hockey. I've coached youth hockey all the way up to high school, things like that and stuff. I've spoken with, you know, come from Detroit. I was big into hockey, but, you know, but with it, I would love to like having those talks with people, helping them get into that pregame mindset. And I'll tell you, I could take people that had not as much talent as somebody else, but they could outperform that other side with the proper mindset, with doing that subconscious alignment and total mindset alignment. That's how you take people that have mediocre skills and just achieve excellent. And it's the same with business as it is with sports. You know, so that's perfect the way you said that, Craig.
Yeah, I love that. That was a great takeaway. I mean, I think if people can look, you know, we all get involved with different things we're passionate about, but like Craig is big into sports. And I think like what his mental takeaway of that is so cool because everything we do applies, the fun things we do and the work things we do. And the failures are the best opportunities. And I love that, like kids, I mean, we as adults, we can look back and like really see that armchair quarterback kind of thing, where we can see like so crystal clear where they're getting ready to make a mistake, but you got to let them make the mistake. It's so hard to do. But the same thing applies to us. I mean, just because we're not kids anymore, you know, someone's probably looking at us going, they're about ready to step into a big pile of dog stuff, you know? Can we save them? Let's grab them before they make the plunge.
That's where we're at the TV on our cell phone trying to call the coach.
Well, you know, like that made me, I mean, what you said made me reflect back, but that is an incredible lesson of, you know, that's just one of many lessons that anybody could learn, whether you're looking at it or in it.
Right.
But to your point, if we don't slow down, we miss those opportunities to make that change or that decision or to grow. And I mean, that's the foundation of your entire method, is to slow down so you don't miss those opportunities.
Yeah. And this, you know, everything I teach, I've been through with my life. So you know, like I have experience, but how many people will try something, right? And they'll say, okay, I'm going to make 30 calls a day, and they'll hammer the phones. It's not really, it may not even be their bailiwick of something that's an accelerating system of habits for them, but they'll do it because somebody said it works, right? And so they'll follow through with that, and then they won't get success with it. They're what they perceive as failure. And so what they'll do then is the next day, double that and try harder and go more at it and try harder and harder until they're so exhausted and burned out that they're not even enjoying what they're doing anymore. And real estate is intended to be an entrepreneurial, you know, business. But so often realtors end up getting in there and you know, their best efforts, they're trying to succeed, trying harder and harder and harder. And they end up being kind of a slave to a job that's real estate instead. And my whole purpose is to help realtors shift that around. You should have freedom in your life. You should be hitting your goals. You should have, you know, like my clients will talk all the time and we laugh about it. They go, you know, they'll talk about this huge closing they had or these listings and stuff. And I go, how'd that come about? They go, it came out of the blue. You know, and we've all had those things, but we have to be in alignment because they're coming by us all day long, every day. But if we're trying harder and harder and going 150 miles an hour, I know in my own life and the clients I work with, at that speed, we don't even recognize they're there. We don't pick up on those when we slow down. And I'll tell you, I have a realtor who was in real estate for 16 years. When I met her, she said, Joey, I don't even think I have time for a coaching call every week. That's how busy she was. And her business was spiraling downward. In the time we worked together, she achieved her highest earning year in 15 years of real estate. And in 2021, her goal was 10.5 in sales. Now that's not huge, but 10.5 in sales with all residential, real estate. She ended up closing the year at over $22 million.
Wow.
And it was the only year of her life she took 5 weeks of vacation in the same year. I'm over here. 5 weeks of vacation in the same year. One of them was a 2-week trip to Israel that was on her bucket list.
Nice.
When we slow down, we start opening up. We can start having inspired actions versus massive actions. We can start identifying opportunities that we're not seeing when we're flying. And what happens so often in the teaching how to sell real estate is people are taught that you make phone calls, you do door knocking, you do, all the different things and the tools we know, social media and all that. And people will try to do every one of those things to the max they can do it in order to get there. And it's all because of their desire, which is awesome. But what happens is they get burned out over time trying to uphold all these things. One of the things I specialize in is looking at that whole huge toolbox they have, realtors have available to us and identifying which ones light you up. I have some realtors who can't stand doing any live videos. I have other ones that just sparks them up to do that. And so we start looking at developing systems of accelerating habits of things that power you up through doing it. And by focusing on those, you don't have to do the other things.
Right.
And I love helping somebody identify that.
I wrote this down. I love inspired action over massive action.
Yeah.
Because in massive action, when done the wrong way, it doesn't get you anywhere. If it's not in the spirit of who you are.
Yes. Yes. And one of the things that will turn off people to what I do is we are all in this somewhat of a robotic life where it's like, what did you do to become successful? What was the steps you took? And then I'll take those steps and I'll achieve success. And I always use Grant Cardone in this and stuff because, he had totally different conditioning than what, this guy had where I grew up and stuff. But when you look at that, so many people will go to him and say, tell me what you did. And he'll tell those people what he did. And they'll go out and take those actions. But do you know what percentage of those people ever achieve similar results to him?
1%.
At best. Because what it is it's the philosophy behind what he did is he found out a success pathway, a success road mapping system that worked for him. And he took that. That's not going to be the same for anybody else. And so what I teach realtors, and I tell everybody, I don't have your answers, but where I'm really freaking good is helping you identify what those are. What's that pathway to success? What's those accelerating habits? And then step into taking those. And you'll achieve success through your own road mapping, not through somebody else, expecting somebody is going to give you those steps and do them. And so it takes a little bit of effort to understand those. But once we understand those, we can carry those to real estate. We can carry those to our personal life. We can carry those to any area where we go forward into in our life. And we have those tools set for unique, specifically to us, to our uniqueness.
Yeah. I think that's one of the beauties of real estate, that there are so many different ways to succeed.
Yes.
But where the agents make the big mistake is what you just said. They're like, I'm going to go ask Shelly how she did it. You're not Shelly.
Yeah.
Shelly has the powers that Shelly has because that is her wheelhouse. That's her comfort. That's her excitement. Whereas if you try and if I tried to be here, it doesn't work.
Right.
Because it's a different personality. There's different likes. There's different things that you excel at, those accelerating, things. So identifying that is massive.
And go ahead.
We all have our gift and what we're good at. I mean, and I think that's why people need other people. If God gave us all the gifts, then we just live by ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just developing on those and building on those. You have to do some outreach to be a real estate agent and be successful. You have to, some way, shape, or form. Maybe videos isn't yours. Maybe it is. Maybe cold calling. Maybe this. Maybe that. But there's ways of doing those things. Like, for instance, when I work with somebody who feels the need to do cold calling, then I'll talk to them. They go, I can't stand doing it. It'll take me a week to make 3 phone calls because that phone is so heavy to pick it up, right? And I'll work with them. When I started out in sales and I was building territories, I couldn't stand doing cold calling. I couldn't stand speaking on stage in front of people and stuff like that, back then. But what I did is I made a game of it. So I said, I'm going to go for 5 no's today. I'm going to call people until 5 people say, no, I'm not interested in what you do. And I would call. And what I found would happen a few days into it is all of a sudden I'd get a yes. And I'd be like, oh, man, I wanted to get my 5th no. and you start doing things like that. And it starts incorporating different throughout how you see it. So it's not that big 10,000 pound phone you're picking up. It's a game you're playing. And really, that is what life is. It's a playground. And we get to choose where we want to play, and we get to choose how we want to play. And, one of the quotes I quote a lot from Wallace Wattles, I absolutely love him, is thinking is the hardest work in the world. And that's why most people don't do it. But if you really think about that, I always chuckle when I hear that, but if you think about it, how many thinking people would exhaust themselves to the point of they couldn't even stand what they're doing anymore, just trying to get to some level of success? Because when we have the awareness there's another way, and we choose not to look into that other way even, then we're choosing to go through our life not thinking. We're choosing to go through our life, just playing that conditioning over and over and over. Some people live 90 years. Other people live 1 year 90 times, and they just continue to repeat those same systems and processes and that conditioning. They never move toward realization in it.
Yeah, those 2 things right there, don't overthink and repetition. And I'm a big overthinker. I mean, I'll throw myself in the fire. Like I try to think like, well, if we do this, then what's that? And sometimes that's good, but if you do it when you want an action and you're gonna try and get that action anyhow, there's no reason to overthink it. You got to get to that action. So think on the way. Take the issues as they come.
I almost raised my hand on that, Craig, because I'm the exact same way. I'm a head guy. I'm a strategizer. I'll sit down and come up with 50 different ways of how we can promote something and do something like that. My team will often tell me, you know what? Why don't you go fishing for an hour and leave us alone? But what I do in that process and what I've learned to do is I have indicators and coaches and things like that to help me see where I'm doing that so that I can slow down and trust in allowing. And so often the hardest thing to do when we're in that mode, and I'm sure for you too, is to slow down, bring it down, clear, just let our mind clear. Focus on something that we want to do, fishing, riding a motorcycle, things like that, hang gliding, whatever it is, and focus on that a little bit. And then that'll help those opportunities to flow inward instead of us blocking them with all of our mindset. Michael Singer in the Untethered Soul, he said the purpose of our mind is to help us solve complex problems. So there is some indication of a need for that in the planning and things like that and what I do, but it's not a driver. The intent is that we own our mind, but so often people go through their life with their mind in that programming playing out over and over with the tapes, driving them and telling them what they can't do and why something can't be easier than it is and why we have to work like maniacs in order to achieve something, and that can stop whenever we choose for it to stop.
Yeah,
it's good. One thing, Joey, I know, speaking of fishing, your passion, you moved your family, a lifestyle, right? You and I similar did, Greg, all 3 of us have done this, where we were in a good spot where we were, and we chose to move for a lifestyle to have the life while we're young enough to enjoy it. Tell us a little bit about why Greenville, why Trout Stream? Like, what are the things that really, where is that, how is that reset? Joey?
For me, like nature is like, it's like church. Honestly, when I go out into nature, I love, I lake fish and things like that, but I love fishing trout because they're in streams and rivers and things like that. And I love it because it's moving water. And I just get these thoughts of like, I can go out there, like when I'm strategizing in that mindset place we were talking about, Craig, and I can go out there and I'm instantly reminded, man, I'm trying to paddle up current right now. I'm working my butt off trying to get up current right now. Why don't I just go that way and see what there is? And I have all these insights, and I just have this connectedness with doing that. I jump on the motorcycle and I hit the back roads here and stuff, or my Jeep, and I'll go off-roading and just drive on dirt roads and stuff. And it's like, it's that connection point. It's like, man, and it takes me from a place of how I'm trying to live and how I get to live.
That's awesome.
Which makes such a huge difference.
I'm a trout fisherman too, so I get that. I mean, and my husband always says trout don't live in ugly places.
He said what?
That trout do not live in ugly places.
Oh, amen. Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful areas. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been to a place where I'm trout fishing where it's like, oh man, if I was a trout, I wouldn't live here. It's like so beautiful. And yeah, I love going out there, even taking pictures of things as memories. And it's just, that's what it is. It's spiritual for me. It's a spiritual connection being there.
Agreed. I love that. So with your show coming up, tell us like some of the cool things or like things that you may not be able to tell everything, but some of the, like, what is the realtor experience that you've had that where you were like, that was a big aha, or, you know, someone you worked with? I know that I love the story with the girl who you just shared a few minutes ago, but just share like a cool experience that you were like,
oh yeah, absolutely. You'll be telling me to shut up pretty soon. But one of the gentlemen I worked with, he was in his 50s, and he'll be on the show at some point. But he's okay with me sharing this. But he was in his 50s when I met. And when I talked to this guy, when I first was getting to know him, I was like, oh my God, this guy's like a genius, man. I'm gonna need a dictionary talking to this guy, you know, and just by the words he would use and stuff like that. You've met people like that, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so as I got to know him more, though, he had a real estate business. He was trying to help other people build, you know, teaching them the how-tos in real estate. He was married. He had kids. He was a musician. He, you know, did service at the audio at the church, and everything about his life was mediocre. As you got into it, and it's like it just didn't even match for me. Like, how is this guy like he is? But then his whole life, everything about it was like that. So we started working together. The second week we worked together, this came out that when he was in the 6th grade, so he's 11 years old or whatever, he went to a brand new school. In doing that, he had to do a placement test. He took the placement test. So the first day of this new brand new school in the 6th grade, so all these other kids knew each other. They all went to the class. He went to the principal's office, and the principal gave him his test results and said, man, you're in the 11th grade reading. You're in college math. Like, all of his academics were real high. So the principal said, congratulations, take this and go to this classroom. Here's your teacher. Give this to her. So this kid walks into this classroom, whole room full of kids already sitting down. So he interrupts the class. He walks in, gives the test results to the teacher, and the teacher says to him, oh, well, look at this. You're in the 11th grade reading. You're in the college math, and started berating this kid in front of the entire classroom and ended it with, oh, I guess you should be teaching this class and go sit down, you know. And he went through that entire school year, picked on, bullied, ridiculed, teased because of that. And within that age, that age of 11, 12 years old, that 6th grader made a decision never to let anybody see that side of him again. And so he went from that point into his 50s when I met him.
Wow.
And when we understood that, I have tools for shifting that underlying condition that keeps us trapped. We went through it. And you guys, over the next 2 weeks, this guy called me probably 4 times talking about how opportunities were showing up, how like he had spoke up to his wife rather than being that passive, you know, and all of that. And all of a sudden it kind of triggered her, and she got kind of excited to see him be that way. His relationship with his kids started turning around. This is within a couple of weeks, but it's almost instantly for how many years. This guy would call me and just be crying on the phone at this insight. And when I say that about, I'm getting goosebumps, when I say that about that underlying conditioning, it has such an impact on how we're living and what we get to experience in today. When we understand what that is and identify it and then shift it, we start opening up the doorway. So now it's been some months. His business went from like a $500,000 a year sales in real estate to over $1 million within months. He's been asked to step up with the organization he works with, step up and start doing more mentoring with the people. His relationships with his kids are just like on fire right now. And he's more of a coach than he is a dad in their life, you know, where he's supporting them and loving them. And him and his wife, it's like they're building a brand new relationship now in areas that he's able to come out that he has not experienced in almost 20 years. I think it's almost 20 years of marriage.
Wow. That's incredible.
Awesome. And I get to be a part of this. Holy crap, this kid from Detroit gets to be a part of this in somebody else's life. You can see why I'm so freaking excited.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Be able to like have that little bit of, if you can, you know, do you have a gift of being able to see and pull the curtain back in a way that's non-threatening, in an encouraging way that people will allow you to make a little bit of a shift, because it really is just sometimes a small shift if we make that we can actually see a little further. I mean, I know Craig and I've experienced that as I've known him for, gosh, probably 12 years now, that we both have grown in ourselves as people. And, you know, it's little shifts. And sometimes it's like if someone could just shine a light on it, like a Joey that can go, hey, here's a light, let's shine it on you. And like, let's look at that a little bit and let's make that shift sooner. So we're not waiting 5 years, 10 years, or hopefully losing a relationship with children or a spouse or a family member just because we weren't able to see it.
Or life passion. Mm-hmm. Right. So many people exhausted and stuff. Yeah. And you know, that's the reason, you guys, why I work with a coach. And you know, I'll work with one up until like, it's like, okay, time to move, but I'll work with a coach because they help me see things that I don't see coming through my own conditioning. There's things that, you know, it'll come back up over time. You know, one of the best ways of this, a friend of mine explained to me, he said, it's like playing golf. Your whole game is never together, every aspect. Sometimes you're having a problem with your driver and then you straighten it out and then it's your short game and it's your putting, and that's how life is, like the same way. So having somebody there, exactly like you said, Shirley, helps to identify it sooner, to shift it so you don't have to live as many years in that struggle is what we would otherwise live going it alone. And I'll tell you guys this, I had another client of mine who was a CEO of a company, and he hired me to train his employees because he wanted me to train him, because he didn't want to bring a coach in like that, but he wanted me to train him, and then he would train his employees because they just weren't producing. Within a few weeks of working with him, I found out that he had a 36-year marriage and they just coexisted. The kids were growing and out and stuff, and they just coexisted. They didn't eat together. They didn't cook or shop or any of that stuff. They just shared the same dwelling. Within 12-week period, within the 5th week, he was at a event I did live before pre-COVID, and he did a testimonial, and he talked about how he and his wife were like newlyweds, and they were like doing all this stuff together and everything else. And I asked him, I said, so his name is Alex. Alex, what did your wife do? And he goes, she didn't do nothing. And everybody laughed, but what he was saying is he changed. And when we go through that shift with inside, everything in our outer experience has to shift as well. When we got done, he never had to take the coaching to his team, because through his transformation, through the changes he went through, his team was re-sparked and reignited without them even knowing he had worked with me. And we're back to massive producing and growing and achieving over their goals and things like that. You know, and those are the tools I learned how to utilize, I learned about and how to utilize in corporate America.
Right.
When you look at organizations with 350 employees, and they're working one day out of every 2 weeks and things like that, and the fears and all that stuff. And I just did exactly what I do now in life is, instead of focusing on the problem, I started empowering people to focus on the solution. I start out everybody I work with creating a dynamic vision. So we start getting pulled by our vision. I think there was a little blank out there.
We're good. We're back.
Yeah. Okay. But we start getting pulled by a vision. So then as we're facing this conditioning, things like that and stuff, it's much more exciting to shift it because we know we're bringing about more of that vision into our everyday life.
That's awesome.
Love this. I mean, this is, impactful. No problem.
I sure hope so, Craig.
And it's very just eye-opening and you know, gets your wheels turning and inspiring, you know, and that's one of the most exciting reasons we are excited to work with you within Impact and work alongside of you and continue to grow the great thing that we have. I think, you know, you align with what, you know, we're all about. And, you know, you'll just add more fire to the fire in a big way. So we're excited.
You know, I am like honored and I am like on fire. I told you guys when we talked last time, I bought EXP stock year and a half ago, whatever it was before. And even then it was on my vision. Like, I want to be a part of this. I want to be, because, you know, as far as the business and all that, and one of the things that, you know, realtors don't have really is retirement plan, things like that. It all comes through EXP. It's like the full package, but there is that excitement. There's that dynamic fit into achieving maximum results. and doing so without killing yourself, but also like just the building of it and being a part of it. I'm telling you guys, like I am on fire. Even just to be on the phone with you guys right now.
We need to like, I would love to like coordinate some more time with you off this call as well. Like, let's like make it purposeful and really dive in. Like, I know we had our event and all that stuff going on, but ever since we talked to you, you've been, and Craig and I's mind is someone that we're super excited to have in our group. And I know that so many agents are needing your help. Like they need that person to kind of help them through those pieces. And it's awesome to be able to bring someone into the group who has that skill set and has the passion. I mean, you can feel it off of you, like the passion for this, and it's wonderful to have someone who can do that for the people we love and care about in our group. So it's amazing.
Yeah, and like I said, I just love this. And one of the areas where I've kind of specialized in a way is there's realtors, the top producers, right? Top performers, they're at the top, they're getting their, things like that and stuff like that. And that's great. They found their balance point, what works for them and stuff. And even them, I help with the balance of life and stuff. And then there's the people just getting started and they're learning the processes and doing all that. Where I really focus on and what gets left behind a lot is those people in the middle.
Right.
Because they're looked at to where they must not want it bad enough. But, oh, my God, they want it so bad they're killing themselves. Yeah. But they're trying to follow everybody else's process and path and all of that pathway to success rather than having assistance in helping identify what theirs are. And then all of a sudden you start seeing them just excel like crazy. God, to be a part of that and to be a part of that with the XP is just boom. Yeah, exactly. It's freaking go time.
It is.
Someone saying, yes, then you're 1,000% right. It's so true because, it's like we all get these different ceilings. And then what you said is so on point. There's 1,000 paths that they could take. And they're like looking for the right one. And if they pick the one that really isn't who they are, to Craig's point, they go down a path and then they feel like they failed when really they just chose the wrong path, or they were led down the wrong path. So
yeah, you guys have experienced that, right? I know I have multiple times.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
With coaching, the most I've ever spent in coaching, the only walk away I got from the whole thing, honestly, is that's not who I am. That's not my kind of coaching.
Right.
And so, yeah, absolutely. We go down that avenue. But again, the whole thing where we can go, okay, I'll never do that again. Or we can go, that helped show me what I do need.
Right.
Yep.
And that will make a difference in the direction forward.
You can learn something from everything, good or bad.
Yes.
Like to Greg's point with the basketball game last night, you can learn something from everything that happens around you.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, we definitely have learned. And it doesn't matter how big your team is or how much production you do, you're constantly reevaluating and repivoting. You just have more to think about and more responsibility to think right when you have a bigger thing to think about, or in that for us at that time, I mean, like everyone's thing is big because it's for their family. Right. But to be able to think, we had to think about more families.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I'll tell people today is take a quick inventory and look at how much time you put into celebrating your successes and how much time you try to turn around what you perceive as your failures. Because we never really fail unless we quit. But so often we'll put all of our focus on this didn't go right. And we have all these things that are successful around us. If we put more time into celebrating those successes, it'll turn things around on its own. When we accentuate the positives, and so many of the negatives will take care of themselves and they'll just fall off. So getting into that mode, and I'll tell you, I write I believe that our day begins when we put our head on the pillow at night. So before I go to bed, I write my successes for the day and some other things. And one of the things I'll even write as my success is some of the things that didn't work out because they showed me what to do, kind of like Edison in the light bulb with 10,000 experiments with it. They showed him what not to do to help hone in on what he did. And unless we're willing to go down the pathway like that and understand the things that aren't working out are not failures, are guiding us to what does, that's what makes the shift in our experiences and how quickly we achieve.
So true. Well, it's been awesome. Like this time has been amazing. And we want to have you, we have so much like great stuff to keep giving. I know we could do this for a long time because we all love it. But I definitely appreciate you. We're so super excited, and we'll get some times on our calendar where we're doing this regular. and helping lots of people. I know Craig's excited, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
For those of you watching, in Impact, you're going to see a lot more of Joey. I can't wait for everyone to meet him. This is going to be a great partnership with everybody, and we're going to do big things together.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Joey. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, guys. This is an honor. I'm looking forward to meeting a lot of you guys as we go forward.
Awesome. Take care, everyone.